This is Joe's Ochre Jet, and he tells me the other day that What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today is Sunday and it is wiring day. So we're gonna actually make a custom harness for this bike. Now, guys, I'm sure you're probably not gonna want to do that if you've never done it before. So they do sell harnesses that are already made for these bikes. I think Casa Lambretta sells them, BGM sells them. The only thing is that they might not have all the circuits to make everything work. For instance, on this bike, there's a neutral light. You know, in order to make that work, you're gonna have to figure it out. So best way to do that, of course, is to get yourself a wiring diagram and then kind of just compare with the wiring diagram that comes with the harness you get. This one is the one that came with the actual voltage regulator. Actually, it has a whole bunch of different examples. And guys, these diagrams or these wiring schematics are extremely easy compared to any of the modern bikes. So if you're gonna learn about wiring and things like that, I would suggest you start with one of these. So yeah, again, it's only 3 days until Lammy Jammy, so let's get to it. Alright guys, I know it looks like a disaster over here, but I kind of have my harness already mocked up, all the wires I need and where they need to go, and terminated where they need to be terminated. So next thing I need to do is actually wrap it in this vinyl tubing I got from Amazon, and then we can have ourselves a pretty decent looking harness. Okay, so I have my harness wires where they're supposed to go, right here in the headset. I got it running down, nicely loomed up, and I have the brake switch wire right here. This wire here is actually the neutral light wire. Usually from the factory, this is just a bare wire, and it's ran like up here somewhere. So I changed it up. I ran it along with the rear brake cable, which makes sense. So the harness comes all the way back here, and then I'll put the voltage regulator here. Everything will wire into that, and then all the way back to the tail light. So like I said, I have all the circuits there that I need. I just need to terminate them. So now I'm going to secure the harness with the metal zip ties, but first, out with the old, in with the new. I have a sip gauge going into this thing. So those of you not familiar with the sip gauge, actually tells you how fast you're going, the RPM, engine temperature, and odometer. Definitely something you want, especially if you have a tuned bike. This is actually very helpful. So with this thing came a bunch of little harnesses that you need to run right here. Okay, so I'll show you. It's 3 harnesses. Okay, one is for your cylinder head temperature, the other one is for your fuel level, and then of course your power harness. Okay, fuel level meaning there is a new tap that you can get that has the wiring coming out of it, and then when the fuel gets low, it actually tells you on the gauge rather than having a reserve spot on the lever. All right, so we'll get these wires ran, and then we can actually secure everything to the frame properly. Okay, so I actually took the rear wheel off to connect the neutral light switch, which is that thing right there. All this does is send a ground signal up front when the bike's in neutral, and that way it turns on the little blue light on the dash. All right, so now I got the wires going where they're supposed to go. I'll open the headset. I have them routed around all these little mechanisms in here to make sure nothing's interfering with it. Now, so you can push the bike back a little bit. I'm going to clamp this as if it was a metal zip tie. Turn the wheel. Make sure none of the cables of the wiring are getting pinched by the headset mechanisms. If that's good, you can actually start tying the wires down to the frame. Alright, so I just broke about 3 of these things just trying to tighten it around these cables. Freaking junk. But I was trying to keep them original, but these aftermarket ones are just not durable at all. Alright, so I just got back from AutoZone. I got a pack of 10 of these stainless wire ties. So hopefully these are better. I mean, yeah, the other ones were like $1 and some change each. These were 10 for $6. So yeah, I'm gonna try to use these, and hopefully they work out. Okay, so I have these little metal zip ties in place. Actually put on a new horn, 12-volt horn. Actually added a wire for the ground side. So yeah, I think I have everything where they're supposed to be. Now I'm gonna try to slip the leg shield back over this thing, make sure it's not crushing any of the wires, and then we can actually finish up putting the panels back on. So I have the wires exactly where I need them to be, back here and in the headset. Everything else in between is all terminated, like this brake switch, again that rear neutral light switch, and of course the horn. So yeah, let's try to get the leg shield back on. Okay, I've got the leg shield fitted on there. I made sure it didn't crush any of the cables or the wiring. So we are looking pretty good. Now, you did get brand new rubber anti-vibration pads that go between the frame and the actual leg shield. So I'm going to spend some time and actually install those. After that, we should be good. Bolted back on. Everything seems to be okay. Nice and solid. So next up, we'll throw the fender back on. I got the fender on, made sure it cleared the shocks. It does. So next up, we'll put the horn cast back on. Oh my god, that was tough. So the trick to get it all lined up is kind of just thread everything like by hand, and then adjust a little rubber trim, and then kind of just slowly tighten it all back together. Otherwise, you'll never get these three pieces back on correctly with the rubber trim in place. So yeah. Whew. All right, let's finally go on to finishing up the wiring. Okay, so next up, I'm gonna put the tank back into the bike. And I have a new fuel tap for it. So this fuel tap actually works with a sip gauge. So when the fuel's low, you actually see on the gauge, it'll tell you. The only thing that sucks is that you lose the reserve spot. So you do have to pay attention to the gauge. Okay, so let's start by removing this guy right here, the original one. You know what? I think I'm gonna flush it a little bit before I put this one on. So I flushed it a little bit with the fuel that was in there. Got all the sediments and all that crap out of it. So now we can go ahead and install this new tap. So when you install a new tap in a Lambretta, it's there's a plastic bushing before you put the nut on. So the nut is actually, let's see, reverse thread to get it on here. So the trick is to actually tighten both at the same time. You're tightening onto the tank and also onto the fuel tap at the same time. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing. If it didn't catch, you gotta do it again. Something like that. All right, I'm gonna leave it the way it is now, and then we'll go ahead and fit it into the bike. So I've got all new rubber bumpers and whatnot for this tank. I'll go ahead and kind of just sit it in here, see how it looks like. And then I'll add the bumpers and then I'll strap it all down. Before you mount the tank into the frame, so you're going to use these two straps to actually hold it in place. Whoever did it before didn't have these in the right place. Just the eyelet's supposed to be on the top, so it's kind of out of the way or out of sight. So before you actually put the tank in, you need to put the rubber bumpers for the tank on. So these are all brand new. These are from Scootopia, or Scooters Originality. So these holes are, you're supposed to put a bumper like that, like this. This is actually what cushions the tank from the frame. So I can already see it being a real pain in the butt getting it all lined up. So hopefully it's not too bad. So you put the straps through these little openings right there like that. And then you're just gonna let it sit for now. Once you get the tank in there, you can adjust these straps. Got the tank fully mounted into the bike. Now when you mount the tank, make sure it's actually centered in the bike. Make sure the fill hole you can actually access once you're done. Last but not least, the fuel valve. Make sure it's not touching the engine mount. It's going to be really tight, but it's not actually touching. So I went ahead and hooked up the lever, and this seems to be working all right. There might actually be a reserve spot for this fuel valve. I know in the Vespa versions you'd lose it, but like I said, we gained the fuel light up there, and then I have the carb plumbed up to the tank. So now I'm going to put some fuel in it, make sure it's flowing okay, and then we can move on to the next step. All right, I'm just putting a little fuel in there and make sure I got no leaks or anything like that. Make sure it actually flows okay to the carb. All right, so I'm looking under here and I don't have any leaks or anything like that. So let's turn this thing on and see what happens. Looks okay. So next thing I'm gonna do is bleed the brakes. I've got my black vacuum bleeder hooked up to the caliper. Got the master cylinder opened up here. So the first thing you're gonna do is actually fill up the master cylinder with brake fluid, of course. So the object of the game is to keep this master cylinder filled up while you're actually sucking it out at the same time. So I got it filled up right now. And also brake fluid is very corrosive, so make sure you have your paintwork, I don't really care about this, but I'm just showing you, paintwork covered up, and if you do spill some on there, you got to wash it off immediately. Okay, so I have the master cylinder filled up. I have my vacuum bleeder hooked up. I'm going to hook up air to it, so it's going to make a bunch of noise, but it's actually sucking the air out of the line and pulling the fluid down at the same time. So I'm going to hook up the air. Crack the bleeder valve. Okay, so doing that, I already have the brakes bled. So what I was doing is I had the vacuum hooked up to the caliper. I cracked that bleeder valve and started pulling fluid out and the air out, pulling fluid down and the air out at the same time. So I was able to close it back up before I sucked all the fluid out of the master cylinder. But yeah, now I have brake pressure, so we are good. Okay guys, so I got the back end mostly buttoned up. I'm sorry, this is actually a couple days later and I wasn't able to film the entire process, but I did happen to get the tank back in. I have the rear wiring all buttoned up. I could clean this up a little better, but I'll worry about that later, after, maybe after Lammy Jammy. But yeah, I got the wiring coming back to a brand new tail light, the LED tail light. So I think it looks way better. Up here, I've got most of the wires and everything buttoned up for the headset top. And then yeah, this bike is pretty much almost done. I gotta bolt this stuff back together. But the reason why I haven't been filming is because we have this project over here. So this is Joe's Ochre Jet, and he tells me the other day that he has no lights. And if we're gonna ride in a big group ride, I think lights are pretty important. So he brought it over here for me to take a look at it, and I just couldn't figure it out. He would get lights for a second and then it would stop. We changed the 6-volt stator, rewired a little bit, still just lights were just intermittent. Not exactly sure what was wrong with it, but I told him to just stop messing with the 6-volt system, and we went ahead and upgraded to the 12-volt. So the parts that you saw at the beginning of this video, I ended up using on his bike. So it's mostly, it's actually installed. The lights are actually working. He's running on 12-volt now. I did have to actually sacrifice the flywheel for my TV 175. So yeah, we had to sacrifice my TV 175 in order to make his work. But that's just what clubmates do for each other. So now that he's all situated, he should be back later today, actually put this thing back together. And then hopefully get it loaded up tonight, and then we're on the way to Lammy Jammy tomorrow. But anyways, let's continue working on this thing, and hopefully I can get my bike ready. Okay, so as you can see, I've got the all the wiring up here all terminated, resoldered, everything just cleaned up. So I also have the SIP gauge installed, and I made sure this wiring is out of the way when the headset top is actually down. Because you don't want to make sure this stuff doesn't get in the way of the throttle or the shifter linkages. So in addition to that, I actually cut a big slot in the top of the headset to clear the brake hose. Okay, you're gonna need to do that because the brake line runs down this way and down to the caliper. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and finish up mounting the top of the headset, and then I'll clean this up a little more and then put the headlight in, and we should be good to go up here. Okay, so I've got the headset completely buttoned up, all the wiring inside all nice and clean, out of the way of the throttle and whatnot. I cut a little, like I said, I cut a little hole on the side of the headset for the brake line. So that's good to go. Everything's all good. So next up, I'm gonna go ahead and bolt these little floor plates back on, and then have a brand new seat I'm putting on this guy. So this seat actually is made for a bike that has a spare tire. It's a little shorter, unlike the raffle bike we did. I had to make a bracket to move the spare tire back, but yeah, that should be pretty easy. All right, so mounting the leg shield or the rear leg shield pieces. These are little rubber bushings or bumpers that go on these things first before you actually do so. I guess that's just to minimize the vibration that you have on these bikes. So yeah, usually it's a rubber thing first, and then you actually put the part on, and just getting the screws to line up and everything is pretty tricky. So you can use like some contact cement to hold it in place, so either this panel or actually here before you do so, make it a little easier for you. All right, so I got both floor pieces kind of in place. Before actually tightening them all down, you gotta put this bridge piece in and get these screws through. So for anything Lambretta related, to be honest with you, leave the screws loose before you actually go and tighten anything, because if something's too tight or too loose or whatever, you're gonna have a hell of a time fitting certain parts. For instance, like the front end on this bike. Oh my gosh, to be able to fit all the rubber bits and pieces and actually get everything to line up and screw on properly, it was a freaking nightmare. So yeah, keep that in mind when you're doing this kind of stuff. Just kind of put the screws in place where they need to go, like that, and just leave it alone until you have all the other screws lined up and kind of you know, finger tight before you actually tighten everything down. All right, so I've got both of the rear floorboards back on along with the bridge piece. Now this bridge piece is extremely difficult to get back on because you can't get to the bottom side of the nuts, especially with the exhaust in the way. So I think Scooter Lab UK makes the clips that actually clip onto there, so it just gives you a threaded insert. So all you really need to do is just screw down into it without actually trying to keep a nut there like I did. So yeah, if you want to make your life a little easier, make sure you get yourself a set of those. All right, so next up I got the seat in here. It's kind of just fitted, but compared to the factory seat, it's just 4 mounting points. So this should be pretty easy. You can just tighten that down real quick and we should be good to go. Whew. All right guys, I think I'm actually done with this build. That was a lot of work crammed within a week or two. So I apologize guys if I didn't show every single step of the way. I'm sure you understand that I was under a deadline, and it's very hard to actually record, edit, and whatnot, and also keep the deadline. So yeah, so Lammy Jammy is tomorrow. This bike is done, but I still have Joe's to finish up later this evening. So hopefully we can get that done. And for those of you guys that are actually going to Lammy Jammy, please don't forget to come by and say hi. All right, so that's gonna be it for this build series. If you guys have enjoyed these videos, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll catch you all next time.